Get ready for the dictation. On the count of 3, 2, 1, start. Globalization refers to the increased interconnectedness and interdependence of countries, economies, and cultures around the world. While globalization has brought many benefits such as increased economic growth and improved access to technology and information, it has also had a significant impact on cultural identity. One of the primary ways in which globalization has impacted cultural identity is through the spread of Western cultural values and norms. The dominance of Western media and popular culture has led to the homogenization of cultural practices and the erosion of traditional cultural values and practices. This has led to a loss of cultural diversity and identity as traditional cultural practices and values are replaced by Western cultural norms. For example, traditional dress, music, and art forms are often replaced by Western style clothing, music, and art, which are seen as more modern and fashionable. In addition, globalization has led to the commodification of culture, where traditional cultural practices and artifacts are turned into marketable products for tourism and entertainment. This can lead to the commercialization and appropriation of cultural practices, which can further erode the authenticity and meaning of traditional cultural practices. Moreover, globalization has led to the spread of consumerism and materialism, which can further erode traditional cultural values and practices. This can lead to a loss of connection to traditional cultural practices and values as people prioritize material possessions and consumer goods over cultural traditions and heritage. However, it is important to note that globalization can also have positive impacts on cultural identity. For example, increased access to information and communication technologies can allow for the preservation and promotion of traditional cultural practices and values. Furthermore, globalization can lead to increased cultural exchange and dialogue, which can promote understanding and appreciation of different cultural practices and traditions. This can lead to the creation of hybrid cultural practices which incorporate elements of both traditional and Western culture. In conclusion, the impact of globalization on cultural identity is complex and multifaceted. While it has led to the erosion of traditional cultural practices and values, it has also led to increased cultural exchange and dialogue. To promote the preservation and promotion of cultural identity, it is important to recognize and celebrate the value of traditional cultural practices and values while also embracing the opportunities for cultural exchange and hybridization that globalization provides. Globalization is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that has had a significant impact on cultural identity. While the spread of Western cultural values and norms is one of the most visible impacts of globalization, it is important to recognize that globalization has also led to the spread of non-Western cultural practices and values. For example, the increasing popularity of yoga and meditation in Western countries is a reflection of the global reach of Eastern cultural practices. Similarly, the spread of hip-hop culture from the United States to other parts of the world is an example of the global influence of non-Western cultural practices. However, it is also important to recognize that globalization can have negative impacts on cultural identity beyond the erosion of traditional cultural practices and values. Globalization can lead to cultural imperialism, where the dominant culture imposes its values and practices on other cultures. This can lead to the marginalization and erasure of minority cultures, which can result in the loss of cultural diversity and identity. Furthermore, globalization can lead to the commodification of culture, where cultural artifacts and practices are turned into marketable products for tourism and entertainment. This can lead to the commercialization and appropriation of cultural practices, which can further erode the authenticity and meaning of traditional cultural practices. In addition, globalization can lead to the spread of homogenized and standardized cultural practices and values, which can limit the expression and diversity of cultural identity. This can result in cultural hybridization, where traditional cultural practices are blended with Western or globalized cultural practices, leading to the creation of new and hybrid cultural identities. However, it is important to note that globalization can also have positive impacts on cultural identity. Increased access to information and communication technologies can allow for the preservation and promotion of traditional cultural practices and values. This can lead to the creation of online communities and networks that celebrate and promote traditional cultural practices and values. Furthermore, globalization can lead to increased cultural exchange and dialogue, which can promote understanding and appreciation of different cultural practices and traditions. This can lead to the creation of hybrid cultural practices, which incorporate elements of both traditional and Western or globalized culture. This can lead to the creation of new and innovative cultural expressions that reflect the diversity and richness of global cultural identity. To promote the preservation and promotion of cultural identity in the face of globalization, it is important to recognize and celebrate the value of traditional cultural practices and values, while also embracing the opportunities for cultural exchange and hybridization that globalization provides. Governments, civil society, and the private sector all have a role to play in this process. Governments can support the preservation and promotion of traditional cultural practices and values by enacting laws and policies that protect and promote cultural diversity. This can include measures such as funding for cultural heritage preservation, support for indigenous cultural rights, and the promotion of multilingual education. Civil society can also play a critical role in promoting cultural identity by advocating for cultural diversity and supporting traditional cultural practices and values. This can include community-based initiatives that promote cultural heritage preservation, cultural exchange programs, and cultural festivals and events. The private sector can also play a role in promoting cultural identity by promoting diversity and inclusion in the workplace. This can include initiatives that support the hiring and promotion of employees from diverse cultural backgrounds, as well as the promotion of cultural exchange and awareness raising programs. In conclusion, globalization has had a significant impact on cultural identity, both positive and negative. While the erosion of traditional cultural practices and values is a concern, it is important to recognize the opportunities for cultural exchange and hybridization that globalization provides by promoting the preservation and promotion of traditional cultural practices and values while embracing the opportunities for cultural exchange and hybridization. We can create a more diverse and inclusive global society that values and celebrates cultural diversity and identity